Hello, we're Nerds of the West, and today we are giving you our thoughts on Pyramido so you can try and decide, get a little bit of an idea if the game might be right for you. When we review games here, we are talking about not an objective score of 1 to 10. We place things on our Nerds of the West ranking list, which we'll do at the end. This lets us rank games based on what we would rather play, taking into account playtime, table space, whether we enjoy the game, whether the game is good at what it tries to do, all the little intangibles that come to board games. And we, the people that are going to be talking about this, we have a Rebecca.
Hi.
We have a Kai.
Walk like an Egyptian.
We have a Lachlan.
Scarabs are kind of cool.
My name is Tom. Kai, can you give us a brief overview of what this game is and what you're trying to do, how you might win?
Pyramido is a tile-laying game where you are trying to get groups of scoring icons joined together by their colours over the course of several rounds, building a three-dimensional pyramid so that you can see and score tiles you placed in earlier rounds later in the game. So it's a tile-laying game where you have to be thinking several rounds in advance and trying to set yourself up for the future.
The major thing to know is that the 3D-ness connects. Your levels going upwards mean that you can connect multiple rounds of scoring into one big scoring later on. I'm going to start, we haven't done this for a while, but I'm going to start with the art because this is a very visually striking game. But I said at one point in our playthrough, I love the little cross-hatching, crisscrossy, stony cut bits that they've done, not only because it looks cool and the tiles do look like stone, but also it's really visually satisfying and really visually easy to see and delineate where the different tiles are. This game could have been a mess. Like, to try and see where different things line up and where your scoring is. That lined up, perfect, everything's separated. I love it.
Honestly, it's super simple, which is great. Like, it's really simple. I think the color choices were like definitive enough. The browns and the reds probably a little bit close, and there's 2 blues. But I don't know what else you would do color-wise to separate them. But they're super vibrant. So the blue is very dark blue. The teal is quite light. The brown is brown, and the red is like super red. So it's really easy to distinguish the colors, even if you do have some similarities.
Yeah, I don't know how, I don't know how it would read with colour blindness, especially, I know the green and red, if you had a tile that didn't have, because they've all got their own symbols that link to colours, but some tiles don't have symbols. So
Right.
I was just thinking the tiles that don't have symbols, I wonder how readable they would be.
Yeah, they're probably not, especially when it comes to color blindness, because there are definitely like blank ones in here.
Yeah, because a lot of other games will do patterns specific to the colors. So it's like if you can't see colors, you can see patterns.
Yeah, I mean, that would have made things very kind of noisy, but that was just a thought that crossed my mind. I do think it looks good. I like all the symbols.
Even
I
if
like
it was,
the art style.
Even if it was just like a faded symbol of the one that it's supposed to be, but it's not actually like
on each space, and it's just faded on all 4.
Yeah.
I really like the little score tokens.
Yeah, the little jewels
that are,
you place out.
The cat, the mast, scarab, the lotus, the eye, and the ankh. They're all custom. They all look really nice.
They're made of wood. They're not plastic.
They're one of the coolest little wooden tokens we've seen in the game. This, like, Eye of Horus is phenomenal. The scarab is really cool. The Sphinx is awesome. The helmet is all right. And the lotus is nice, but it doesn't have the cutouts on it.
Yeah.
And the Ankh is just cool as well. But that's because they've got cutouts in them, which make them a little bit more intriguing, which kind of sucks that these 2 didn't have it.
Yeah.
Gameplay-wise, there's a lot to unpack as you start to plan yourself for the future. But the one little bit of scoring that makes everything just that little twist, your lowest scoring area scores twice. So if you can have... You keep your options open for what you want to score in the future, but also have only a few things you score. Like Beck had a round where she doubled like an 8 or something.
Doubled.
I think it was an 8. It was an 8?
Doubled 6.
Yeah.
Which can be as much as scoring 2 other places. However, you then leave yourself at the mercy of what tiles come out. We went into this thinking it would be a very casual tile laying, get some colors together. The second you are considering what tiles to put out for the next person to choose, this game is I hate swearing in reviews. This game becomes a shit fight. Like, you are slinging words back and forth as you're like, nah, you cannot have that tile.
Yeah,
at all,
like
ever.
cut in the end of the stream here because I'm never speaking to Lachlan again.
And it does become more brutal as the game goes on because each round you are laying fewer tiles until at the very end you're playing a single tile in the last round.
One tile.
Which could be, the biggest scoring play of the game. And if, like Beck, the 3 tiles that are left for you don't suit, that's it. Like, that's a round in the bin, more or less.
That also comes into your playing and your forward planning, and if you keep your resurfacing for the end.
Yeah, so resurfacing tiles we haven't touched on. Resurfacing tiles.
Resurfacing tiles, you have 3 of them. They're double-sided, and they allow you to convert one of your tile spaces into another color, and it gives you a symbol, which it has a few different benefits, and that's connecting other tiles of the same color together, but also it allows for double scoring in that round, because when you place a domino down, if you can, you have to put a symbol down on top of that tile, but then after that you have the option of putting a resurfacing down and then putting a symbol on it. So you can put 2 of your little jewels down in a round from the one tile, which is super beneficial because then you're going to score 2 colors and not have to wait for that color to come around again and hope that it matches up.
Yeah, the double edge of it lets you connect up the things you want to connect and hopefully get some levels coming in, and then scoring double. Like there are, it both saves you if you get stuck with tiles that you don't want and enables higher scoring opportunities, which is
and just
huge.
more strategic plays of connecting things in interesting ways.
It's definitely balancing out because they can be worth scoring 2 things, 2 big scoring areas early on, or scoring 1, guaranteeing you 1 later in the game, which I think is a very interesting balance for those.
Yeah, but you've only got 3. And they're
Double-sided.
They're double-sided, so if you use your scarab, then you can't use your unk. And so you have to sort of plan around that as well, of being like, well, I really might need to use my unk later, but if you've used it for your scarab, you have to be really picky and choosy about which ones you left, which kind of caught Beck out at the end, where she had not used her resurfacing and she had held on to them till the late game to maximize the efficiency and use of them, but then the one that she had saved was saved because she didn't need it at any other time.
Yeah. If I had used it earlier in the game, I may have been able to look at the last, like if I'd used, say, this one earlier in the game and then kept with my green game so that this one was my last one, but it still benefited me in some way, then at the end of the game, I could have gone like that. And I possibly, maybe potentially wouldn't have, well, no, I wouldn't have won because this would have double scored. But the point is that I would have been in a much different position if I'd known going into the last round I had something that could help me score more points.
Yeah, the edge of what direction you go in and trying to set yourself up for the future, but having the options to save yourself. There is a lot more to consider than I thought when I first read the rulebook.
Yeah.
Beck specifically, but everyone in general. As much as we're talking about you place out the tiles that you want to stop other people, there is always going to be an element of RNG. How did you find that part of it?
So one of the rules, like there's a rule in there that I'm like, I think it needs to be rewritten or redefined in some way, and I don't know what stage of development this game is in.
Finished, released, done.
Finished, released, and done. It's the stacks remaining behind, because the general rule is if you deplete a stack, you take the bottom half of another stack, and that replaces what's left. The issue I have with it is, I know kind of at the end what's going to happen is there's only going to be a certain number of, certain kind of tiles left behind, like, for instance, yellows and browns. But the issue is that, I don't know, I just feel like there should be a less arbitrary way or less RNG way to do it. Like you take half of...
The only way that I would suggest to improve it, it's not necessarily going to fix it, but to improve it would be to have in your stack, have them all upside down, but then the top one is face up, so you can only see what the next one is.
Yeah.
And then you put that down, and then you can flip it, because you do get a glimpse when they're stacked. You do get a little bit. You can kind of see a little bit of green in that pile. You can, and it's hard. You can't really plan for it, but I think that'd be the best way. That if you have to move stacks, then you never see anything else.
I can just say that from I was like, cool, I'm going to do these two colors. And I thought that'd be a good strategy. But then those two colors never came out for me again. So I had to use and not just from the choices other people made, those tiles just weren't appearing. So I had to use my resurfacing tiles to try and pivot towards something else.
Yeah.
And then those tiles didn't come out for me. Like there is a I think, I'm not trying to sound like I'm complaining, there is a healthy amount of RNG here that leaves options available for everyone, but it means that the best strategy I can see so far is have as many options as you can in the first 2 rounds.
So that's what I had a similar idea of Tom, was to try and do one particular color, because I went with the masks earlier, then I tried to do sphinxes, but then Tom was getting all the sphinxes, and I was like, I can't do unks because Kai's like 3 turns ahead of me. By the time that anything comes around, Tom's going to take him, Kai's going to take him. So I just thought, what if I maximize my minimum? So therefore, I've got
hang on, let's wind that back, because I'm the one that mentioned that rule at the end of the first round. I was like, don't forget to max your min.
Yes.
Well, yes, but I guess I didn't mention it, but that's definitely what I was trying to do. And not having a 2s, because we did discuss it in the first round of having like a 2 scoring tile versus like a 3 scoring section, and then minimize, because then you've got, say, 4 of a symbol, then you can pivot into something else. 4 is like a good balance of what your other symbol should be, as opposed to trying to blow it out and make it a 5 or a 7, and that's setting that expectation when you're building.
The main thing I can see is I have the least amount of symbols around the outside of the base of my pyramid out of everyone at the table, which meant I had the least options to connect things up later on. I think having a lower scoring first round is okay if you can launch yourself for the future.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is a really, really interesting way to play a game.
Yeah, I mean, I had that discussion early on laying this tile, whether it was worth getting an extra point by laying it one way immediately, or laying it so that the symbols were on the outside for me to then have them accessible to me later in the game. On the topic of the RNG, I think it's fine. Like, that's just the game that it is. Like, if you would take away the RNG, I don't know how you would. Like, that kind of is the game, right?
Yeah.
And if you prefer, like, Euros, then that's a whole different discussion. I do think that there is enough manipulation of the tiles by the players to make it less about RNG and more about the player interaction. If you're playing with a group like ours, where you are looking at, okay, what am I picking, not just based on what I want, but what Lachlan wants, because he gets to pick next. And even if I'm guaranteeing myself I need this tile desperately because I've got 2 piles to choose from to replenish it, again, if I go, oh no, Lachlan really wants the scarabs, again, it's now less RNG for Lachlan and more about me manipulating the tiles. So I think it is a good balance between, I mean, yes, there were times when just no unks were coming out, and that just sucked because that's what I wanted, but, there it was. But there was also times when unks were available, but the other players were keeping them from me because they knew that I wanted them. So I think there's a good balance there between the way that it forces you to pick what you're replenishing.
I think it'd be interesting to see it in 3 players as opposed to 4, because anything that Kai put down or anything I picked, like, it wasn't necessarily, you couldn't set yourself up. You're at the mercy of everyone else. But if you're playing this in a casual game, you can still have the puzzle and build it up and have a good time. But then we played super competitively, which also made it a different type of game and really enjoyable in that sense that we were hate drafting to a sense, and we were making sure that certain tiles weren't coming down, especially with the unks. We were trying to keep them away from you two, and then Beck had quite a few as well.
Which to turn a casual game into that level of spiciness,
which is
I enjoy.
Yeah.
But
so it can be played in either avenue. It can be played as a casual game, or you can still have the enjoyment of that cutthroat. And it's simple enough that you could just go again.
Just really depends on your group.
Yeah. Let's rank it on the board. Let's talk about how often we would want to pull it out, where and what other games we might play over this. As I said, this is our Nerds of the Rest ranking list. We rank games just considering what we would prefer to play. For me, this is a tough one because I know in our group we're always going to play it super spicy. I think this game can be played quickly, can be played casually. There's a decent amount of math. But personally, I would play Space-Based Manchester Mysterium Park over this. I prefer the maths of Space-Based. I prefer the casualness of Manchester Mysterium Park, and they're that little bit quicker than this. This game is solid. This far down the list doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad game. It's just, in my mind, it's that little bit too long and a little bit too crunchy for what I want out of this kind of game. If I'm going to be honest, if I'm going to play something like this, as much as this is cool with the forward planning, I'm going to play KingDomino. This doesn't beat KingDomino for me.
It's funny you say that because this beats KingDomino by a country mile for me. KingDomino is overrated. I already said that in our last year's reviewing stream. I think this is KingDomino improved in every facet. Every facet.
KingDomino is one of my favorite games, and this has replaced KingDomino for me. And it's because, as much as the RNG screwed me, it's because of the RNG. Like, I thought about it for a minute. Like, KingDomino has, like, the number system on the back where the more valuable tiles are numbered so that they sit further in the list. And it has, like, a pretty fair way, I think, to, you know, evenly place out tiles for people to select. But, like, all I need is just a more fair way to distribute the piles, even if it's, like, leave the top one, take the rest, shuffle them, and then redistribute the piles. But, no, I think this is better than KingDomino.
So where would you put it on the list?
Well, I was going to say Kai should go first because he's the
I
one
would
that...
put it above Mysterium Park under Ark Nova.
Yeah, my logic is the same, and it's basically just because there are certain parts of Space-Based, like Space-Based as a physical board game is too messy for me to want to pull it out. Mysterium Park, it's too easy to get really salty with people's decision-making. Like...
Just like this game.
Yeah, like this game, but even then it's like, you know, I probably am still going to speak to Lachlan at a later date, even though he screwed me around.
6 months from
But
now.
Mysterium Park has you literally question people's intelligence. So I'd prefer to play something like this over that.
Yeah.
Lachlan?
I am going to agree with Kai and Beck, and I really enjoyed KingDomino when Tom, Reese, and I played it, and we played the over 3 rounds to like solidify it. The RNG in that game hurt way more than it did in this game. The RNG in this game, it was still fun to make the pyramid, and it was a much more enjoyable puzzle than what KingDomino was. In terms of it's just dominoes and KingDomino's just dominoes, this was more enjoyable to place dominoes than KingDomino was. So I don't know how many more pizza orders I can get in that review, but that was, I think I enjoyed it, and visually, thematically, enjoyed it more than the medieval setting of KingDomino. And I would say under Ark Nova as well.
So that's why we've ranked it. Let us know your thoughts down below. Any final thoughts from everyone here before we send it off?
I think we covered a lot of things.
Yes,
I think we covered.
I'm just going to say, like, we got sent the playmats, I'm pretty sure, because we have these.
Yeah.
I do like that, like, the playmats actually make this a much bigger game than it really is.
Yes.
Because we did not take up this much space.
And the playmats are not available commercially
As far as we know.
in retail, as far as we are aware thus far. So
yeah.
don't factor that into.
Yeah. I would dare say they would be better without them, because then, like, the certain colors sort of make it hard. I don't know if it was at the start when we were placing things down, it was hard to differentiate the tiles from the actual mat. The mats are nice, and if you're playing on a wooden table or you don't have a playmat, sick, great. We're playing on a blue playmat anyway, so it would have been easier to see what we're placing down.
I think, it's important not to judge it based on these at all. Like, I think these are very nice, and they do add to the theme quite a bit, but
if it's not something that's available to people.
It makes it a lot easier to consider pulling out when you take this away, because all of a sudden you don't need a space that's like this big just to have 2 players. You only need a space that's like this big. So
Yeah. takes up very little room.
Yeah, like the
overall.
playmats are very nice, like 100%. They're gorgeous. It's just, it makes the game feel bigger than it actually needs to be.
Yeah. We have been Nerds West. That is our thoughts on Pyramido. Let us know if you are going to check it out. As we said, we've done a how to play and a playthrough of it as well. So if you're keen to see how they go and watch those. We do this live every single week, Saturday at 9 a.m. Australian Western Standard Time, at least for the foreseeable future. We change it up every year or so, but we are live every single week. You can catch us for some board gaming action. We've been Beck,
Hello.
Lachlan,
I've got nothing.
Kai.
Mummy!
My name is Tom, and we'll catch you next time.